It is time to get local, because that is where we start to see change. And while lawmakers and state houses are going after issues that affect very few people, we're going to talk about the issues that actually matter. And I want to bring in two local reporters to put in perspective the issues that their states are actually dealing with. Patrick Svitek joins us, political reporter at the Texas Tribune, and Jason Rosenbaum, a political reporter for the St. Louis Public Radio. Patrick, take us to Texas, because the suspect believed to have fatally shot 5 of his neighbors, including a 9-year-old boy, has potentially been arrested after a multi-day long hunt. What can you tell us?
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been a horrific tragedy that has really consumed the state these past few days. And it's obviously touched on politically charged debates that we've been having for a long time in Texas around immigration. We've seen, Republican leadership in the state commenting critically on the immigration status, real or perceived, of the victims. And also there have been reports that the suspect in this case was in the country illegally and had been deported multiple times previously. And so, again, a really horrific circumstance. And tried also touched on some of the political debates that have been running hot in Texas for a very long time now.
Well, let's stay on immigration, because we're expecting a migrant surge again starting next week. And the governor there, Greg Abbott, said yesterday he's going to go back to this move of busing migrants to other cities in blue states. What do you know?
Yeah, this is a tactic the governor's been using for over, several months now. It's something that really started picking up for him about a year ago. It's actually been a little quieter recently in that he hasn't been as public in telegraphing his various moves in this kind of busing program. But it seemed to have been reawakened recently when the Chicago mayor, asked him to stop doing this. And as he has done before, he sent her a letter back or said back to her that he would not stop doing it, and that, she needs to take this issue up with the Biden administration versus Texas.
From defund the police to defund your local library, Jason, the Missouri Senate approved a $50 million state budget, and that includes funding for public libraries. Republicans there had been trying to cut that funding. Explain what happened, and is this fight over? We want to keep our public libraries open.
This fight is not exactly over. It'll be over later this week. But what happened was the Missouri House ended up cutting $4.5 million for largely rural not highways, libraries. And this money would not necessarily go towards books, but to make sure that these libraries had high-speed internet and people could go in there to apply for jobs. And this was really retaliation for a lawsuit where librarians are suing over a law that could potentially criminalize librarians for providing quote-unquote sexually explicit material. The Missouri Senate is a lot more bipartisan in its approach. They saw this as kind of a petty messaging move, and they restored the funding. We'll find out later this week which side wins, but the Senate usually gets its way with a lot of budgetary things. So I would say that the library funding will eventually go through.
Good. I think I said 50 million. I meant 50 billion. Patrick, back to Texas. Today, protesters at the Texas Capitol helped postpone a vote on a bill to ban gender-affirming care for minors. It's stunning what a massive issue this has become for such a small number of people in the state. What can you tell us?
Yeah, the last time we saw anything like this in the Texas Capitol was probably in 2017 when protesters were cleared out of the gallery during some heated debate or protests over an immigration-related bill. So we haven't seen a scene like this at the Texas Capitol in several years now. The fact that this particular proposal is advancing through the Texas House, which has been a little more moderate in recent legislative sessions, probably just shows you how Texas, which is already a very conservative state, is becoming even more conservative. During our last legislative session, this proposal did not get a vote on the floor of the House, much to the anger of some conservative activists. And now this proposal is back this session. It made it through the Senate as expected, and it already has majority support on the record in the House. And so it is very likely, going to still be passed off the House floor later this week, even though there was a temporary delay today due to a procedural maneuver that Democrats used to send it back.
All right, something slightly different is happening in Missouri. The Attorney General is ordering restrictions on gender-affirming care, not for minors, for adults. What can you tell us about that, Jason?
This is really opening up an entirely new pathway in this discussion. These rules are not just rules, they're very heavy restrictions. If you're an adult in Missouri that wants to get hormone therapy or gender transition surgery, if these rules were in effect, you would have to have 3 years of documented gender dysphoria, be screened for autism, and have mental health conditions, quote, treated and resolved. And a lot of people have said, wait a second, there are some mental health conditions like ADHD, which can be suppressed, but cannot be resolved unless you want to take a stimulant that lasts for 24 hours and never sleep again. So this is the type of thing that is fueling a legal case that may ultimately be successful. But what's alarming LGBTQ activists in Missouri and elsewhere is they feel this is the next wave of transgender-related bills. After, Texas and Missouri passed their bills that would bar transgender minors from getting things like puberty blockers or hormone therapy, in a couple of years, there may be enough constituent demand to do sort of the same thing for adults. And that's why people are really on guard about these rules, even if they're struck down in court or even if they end up withering away, and why people around the country should definitely pay attention to what's going on in Missouri here.